It was just supposed to be dinner. A quiet Sunday evening at my parents' house in upstate New York. Roast chicken, green beans, polite conversation. My mother, Karen, was her usual cheerful self, calling from the kitchen. "We're just about to eat." My father, Don, nodded stiffly when I walked in, as if trying to decide whether a hug was warranted. And Lindsay, my younger sister, barely looked up from her phone, her usual air of detached disinterest hanging over the room. Everything looked normal. That was the trap. I took my seat, already set with cranberry juice just like when I was a kid, the kind of detail only a mother remembers or manipulates. I hadn't touched the stuff in months, but I smiled and played along. That was always my role. The quiet one, the reliable one, the good daughter. Then my phone buzzed in my lap. A message from an unknown number. "Get up and leave now. Don't say anything to your parents." My stomach dropped. The room around me kept moving. Don rambling about traffic, Karen smiling, Lindsay chewing slowly. I read the message again. No name, no explanation, just urgency. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew this much. Someone I didn't expect was trying to protect me. And the people I trusted most might be hiding something far worse than indifference. I stayed seated, trying to breathe through the wave of unease that swept over me. The dining room looked almost staged, like a picture from a home decor catalog rather than the chaotic, but loving home I used to remember. The plates were set with near perfection. Silverware gleamed. Napkins were folded just so. It wasn't warmth, it was choreography. A performance of closeness that none of us really felt anymore. Karen smiled at me across the table as she scooped mashed potatoes onto my plate. "Still like cranberry juice, right?" she asked, her voice light, almost maternal. It should have been comforting. It wasn't. I hadn't touched cranberry juice in nearly a year, but I nodded anyway, and she looked satisfied, like a checkmark had been ticked off in her mental list of motherly duties. Lindsay sat to my right, thumbing her phone under the table. Her nails were perfectly manicured, her expression unreadable. She didn't bother hiding her disinterest. That was her way. Always detached, always shielded. Her entire life had been about taking and waiting for others to fix her messes. Across from me, Don was launching into a story about highway detours and a new construction site near the interstate. He was animated, as if we were close, as if I hadn't stopped calling months ago. As he spoke, his fork hovered over his plate, his words flowing in a rhythm he had clearly rehearsed. Small talk meant to fill time, not space between hearts. And yet, on the surface, everything appeared normal. The kind of family dinner we're told to cherish. Laughter, food, shared space. But beneath it all, there was a wrongness I couldn't ignore. A hollowness that clung to every polite smile and half-hearted question. I felt like I was sitting in a wax museum. It wasn't just the cranberry juice or the perfectly set table. It was the way Karen's smile never quite reached her eyes. It was how Lindsay kept glancing at me sideways when she thought I wasn't looking. It was Don's strangely precise interest in my apartment, my work schedule, and how often I traveled. The questions came lightly, as if in passing, but they were too pointed, too careful. This wasn't a family trying to reconnect. It was a family managing a situation. The message echoed in my mind again. "Get up and leave now. Don't say anything to your parents." I looked at the glass in front of me. The cranberry juice was deep red, almost theatrical in color. It hadn't been stirred. No condensation clung to the outside. It didn't smell wrong. But now I couldn't stop wondering what might be in it. Alcohol, a sedative, something worse. They all kept eating like nothing had changed. Dawn passed the butter. Karen laughed at something Lindsay said. But I saw it now clearer than I ever had before. This wasn't a dinner. It was a setup. And the most terrifying part, they were good at pretending. They were good at smiling through betrayal. I realized in that moment Just how dangerous normal can be when it's used to cover something rotten. A fawade of family can be the most effective disguise for harm. And the people who raise you, who feed you, clothe you, tuck you into bed can also be the ones who look you in the eye and lie without flinching. That night, I didn't see my parents and sister across the table. I saw strangers wearing masks I used to believe in. The dining room was spotless, almost suspiciously so. The kind of cleanliness that didn't say welcome home, but rather we've been expecting you. Everything was in place. Silverware aligned perfectly. Candles flickering without scent. The roast chicken sliced just enough to appear casually served. It all looked too precise. Like a set. Like a family trying to convince the outside world and maybe themselves that everything was fine. Karen, my mother, stood at the kitchen doorway with a bright but brittle smile. "We're just about to eat. Come in." Her voice was cheerful, but I noticed the tiniest pause before she said it, like she'd practiced the line. My father, Don, stood when I entered, half rising from his seat before settling back down into a stiff nod. He didn't reach for a hug. Neither did I. Lindsay, my younger sister, didn't bother to look up. Her fingers moved rhythmically over her phone screen, her attention anchored elsewhere, the way it always had been. She glanced at me just long enough to offer the social minimum, then returned to whatever feed she was scrolling through. That didn't surprise me. Nothing about this evening did until the moment my phone buzzed in my lap. The message was short. No name, no emojis, no warmth. Get up and leave now. Don't say anything to your parents. I didn't move. Instead, I glanced down at the table, at the glass in front of me. Cranberry juice, my childhood favorite. A drink I hadn't touched in months, maybe longer. Still, there it was, poured and waiting, as if no time had passed. Karen smiled across the table again. "Still like cranberry, right?" I nodded. I didn't want to get into it. I didn't want to crack the surface of this fragile performance. But something about that moment, the juice, the question, the smile that didn't touch her eyes made me realize this wasn't just a dinner. It was a scene. The entire room was filled with the theater of family. Familiar foods, casual banter, practiced lines. Don asked if I was still living in the same apartment, then mentioned traffic. Lindsay told a story about a coworker getting stuck in a revolving door. I chuckled, not because it was funny, but because I knew my role. I had always been the quiet one, the steady one, the one who didn't stir the pot. And that's exactly what they were counting on. But now I saw it clearly. This wasn't warmth. It was camouflage. An attempt to smother me in normalcy, to lull me into forgetting the months of silence, the requests for money, the accusations when I finally said no. They were all pretending, and I was pretending not to notice. And yet, that message, it shattered the script. It made me aware of everything under the surface. How Karen's eyes flicked to my glass when she thought I wasn't looking. How Don's questions about my schedule sounded a little too planned. How Lindsay's nonchalance seemed almost staged. For years, I'd convinced myself that the distance in this family was just personality. That we weren't cold, just quiet. That we weren't manipulative, just close-knit in our own way. But sitting there, with that message burning in my mind and that untouched glass of juice in front of me, I felt something else entirely. This wasn't distance. It was calculation. And the people who raised me, who once tucked me in at night and bought me birthday cakes, were now sitting across from me in quiet coordination, wearing the faces of parents and a sister I thought I knew. What looked like family was a mask. And beneath it, something colder. Weighted. Being the older child never came with a title, but it came with expectations. Quiet ones, assumed ones. And they started early. When I was 9 and Lindsay was 6, our parents gave us each $5 a week. I saved mine. Lindsay didn't. Within days, she'd spend it all on bubble gum or glitter pens or whatever her classroom's economy revolved. around. And then she'd come to me not with an apology, but with those wide, expectant eyes that knew someone else would fix it. That someone was me. She doesn't have any left. You still do, Karen would say. Don't be selfish. So I gave. Not once or twice, but every time. At first it felt like kindness. Then it felt like the beginning of something I wouldn't understand. Until much later a pattern of sacrifice that only ever went one way. In high school, I worked part-time at a local pharmacy, just weekend shifts, enough to buy my own clothes. Without arguing, Lindsay didn't work. She's younger, they'd say. She has enough on her plate with school. But whenever she wanted something, movie tickets, a new bag, even gas money, it was assumed I'd cover it. Not because she asked, but because she didn't have to. She'd go to them. They'd come to me. And I always said yes. When I left for college, I thought I was free. I was to states away, living in a cramped dorm and surviving on boxed pasta and canned soup. I thought the space would buy me peace. It didn't. Lindsay was still in high school, and my parents still called, sometimes with news, sometimes with casual, almost forgettable requests. Could I help her with a new laptop? Books were expensive. She was stressed. Then she started college too, majoring in something vaguely related to finance. She didn't work, didn't budget, didn't ask me directly. She never did. Karen and Dawn did that for her. They framed it as support, family helping family, and I played along because I believed that maybe once I had a real job, it would feel easier. It didn't. I landed an entry-level position at a software company. Junior developer, low pay, long hours. But to them, it was like I'd won the lottery. The asks became bigger, the justifications thinner. She's your sister. She just needs this one thing. You're the stable one. Even when I explained I was barely making rent, even when I said I was struggling with student loans, it never really mattered. They heard no, as not yet. And I kept giving, even when it hurt. But something changed when I turned 24. I got a promotion, not huge, but real. My salary went up modestly. I called Karen to share the news, expecting maybe foolishly a moment of pride. That's great, she said. So, how much are you making now? Before I could answer, she continued, do you think you could help Lindsay with her semester abroad? She's so excited about it. No congratulations. No pause. Just another request. That was when I stopped, saying yes. Not loudly, not with a dramatic announcement. I just stopped. No more extra money for school trips. No more covering her credit card mistakes. No more being the emergency fund for a sister who never learned restraint because she never had to. And when I said no, really no, the silence came. No texts, no calls, no birthday wishes. Just this cold vacuum of distance. Like I had broken something sacred by finally choosing myself. I used to think family was built on love, but for us, it had been built on sacrifice. Mine. And when I stopped offering it, they didn't reach back with understanding. They reached back with punishment. That was the beginning of the end. The final request came wrapped in urgency, but it didn't fool me. It had been weeks since I'd heard from any of them. No texts, no phone calls. Just that heavy silence they always used as a weapon. I figured they were letting me cool off after refusing to bankroll Lindsay's weekend getaway, or declining to Venmo her for a speeding ticket I had nothing to do with. But then one afternoon, Karen called. Her voice was soft, measured. Your sister's in trouble, she said. I didn't respond right away, just listened. She needs your help. It's serious. That's how it always began. Vague words, emotional bait, never the full story. But this time, there was a number, $12,000. Not pocket change, not a late phone bill or missed rent. $12,000. I asked what it was for. Dawn stepped in on speaker, something about student loans, medical expenses, nothing we need to get into. I knew better. So I called Lindsay myself. At first, She sounded casual to casual. But when I told her I knew something was wrong, her tone shifted. She admitted it. Finally, she'd been gambling. Not just once. Not just for fun. Real money. Real losses. And now she was deep in it. Owed more than she could repay. And if her finance employer found out, it'd be over. Her job, her career, her future. She sounded desperate. Ashamed. But not sorry. She didn't ask me directly for the money. She never did. She let our parents do that. Her voice trembled when she said, "If people find out, I'm finished." There was a time when that would have been enough for me, when I would have drained my savings without hesitation. But not this time. No. I said not later. Not partway. Not I'll think about it double quotes, just no. She was quiet. Then, you're being cold. Maybe I was. Maybe I had to be. I've been helping you your entire life, I said, my voice flat. And it's never made a difference. I won't clean this up. Not this time. Not ever again. She didn't argue. She just hung up. 3 days of silence followed. Then a meme from Dawn. A picture of the backyard from Karen. A silent TikTok from Lindsay. And finally, the dinner invitation. Just the family. Hope you'll come. No mention of the 12,000. No apologies. Just dinner. For a moment, I almost believed it meant something. That maybe they understood. Maybe they'd accepted my decision and wanted to reconnect without strings. But when I arrived that night and saw the cranberry juice already poured, when Karen smiled a second too wide and Dawn asked if I was still using fingerprint login on my banking app, just curious I knew better. They weren't done. They'd accepted my no, but they weren't going to honor it. They were going to go around it. And that was the moment everything sharpened. The moment my love stopped blinding me to the truth. Because love without respect isn't love, it's leverage. And I had been letting them hold me for ransom my entire life. That night, I didn't just make a decision. I made a choice to stop playing along. To stop rescuing people who never once reached back with anything but their open hands. The invitation had been so casual. Just dinner, the message read. Just the family. Hope you'll come. After weeks of silence, I wanted to believe they meant it. That maybe, in their own way, my parents Karen and Dawn and even my sister Lindsay were extending a kind of peace offering. No mention of the money. No guilt. No conditions. Just a meal. So I said yes. But somewhere between opening their front door and sitting down at that perfectly staged table, the illusion began to crack. It started with the glass. Cranberry juice. Poured and waiting. A drink no one else at the table had. Karen had always insisted she remembered what I liked. But something about the glass sitting there, untouched and oddly isolated, felt off. It wasn't just nostalgia. It was intentional. I hadn't picked it up. I hadn't taken a sip. But I saw how Karen's eyes flicked toward it more than once. I saw the way Lindsay's scrolling slowed every time I moved my hand near the rim. And Donnie kept steering the conversation back to me. Where I worked. My schedule. Whether I still used the same phone. Whether I'd updated my passwords. They asked so casually, like they weren't casing me. Then came the message. Again. Don't drink anything. Get up and leave. Please. This time, the sender was revealed. Mark. Lindsay's ex. He never reached out to me before. I didn't even know they were still in touch. I excused myself to the upstairs bathroom, locked the door, sat on the edge of the tub, heart pounding. I called him. It's the juice, he said. I think they put something in it. My mouth went dry. I hadn't tasted it. Not yet. Why? I asked. They want your phone, your fingerprint. I think they're going to try to get into your accounts. My stomach turned. Not because it was unbelievable, but because it wasn't. Because deep down, I knew it was possible. I knew my family. I knew what they were capable of when they felt entitled and desperate. And $12,000 of gambling debt was more than enough to push them into something unthinkable. So I made a decision. I went back downstairs, calm, smiling. I picked up the glass, gave it a gentle swirl, even pretended to enjoy the scent. Tastes like. I remember, I said. But I didn't drink. Instead. I waited for a moment when no one was looking. I leaned down and whispered, "Did someone pull into the driveway?" Everyone turned, and I carefully tilted the glass under the table and poured just enough of the juice into the thick carpet to make it look like I'd had most of it. Not enough to make a mess. Just enough to sell the lie. I sat back up, blinked. Slowly. "I don't feel so good," I said. "Just a little woozy. I think I need to lie down." No hesitation. No questions. Karen rushed to get a blanket. Dawn fluffed the pillows on the couch. Lindsay took my phone and placed it gently on the coffee table. I let them guide me to the sofa, tucked me in like I was fragile, like they cared. But I knew better. I wasn't lying down to rest. I was lying down to catch them in the act. I lay there on the couch, blanket draped over my legs, eyes closed but mind sharp. Every breath I took was deliberate, steady, shallow, measured. My heart thudded against my ribs, loud enough that I wondered if they could hear it. But I didn't move. I couldn't. Not yet. The silence in the room felt electric. Then Karen's voice broke it, low and cautious. "Is she asleep?" She's out. Lindsay whispered. And then Dawn, with a tone so matter-of-fact it made my skin crawl. "Okay, let's do this quickly." I felt it before I heard it, the soft scrape of my phone being lifted from the table. Then came the truly horrifying moment. The feeling of fingers curling around my hand. My own father's hand, guiding my thumb gently toward the phone's biometric sensor. A faint vibration. Unlocked. That was it? No hesitation. No guilt. No second thoughts. Just routine precision, like they'd done it before. "Okay," Lindsay whispered. "We're in." Tapping followed. I imagined them swiping through my banking apps, my financial accounts, looking for the right one, the one with enough to settle her debt. Routing number. Dawn muttered. "She's got everything saved." Karen replied, not missing a beat. "How much are we taking?" Lindsay asked. "Not all of it," Dawn said. "Just enough to settle it." Settle what? I thought, keeping my eyes still. My fists clenched ever so slightly under the blanket. But I forced myself to remain still, to listen. "She won't even know," Karen said. "If it goes through clean, she'll think she transferred it herself." "I told you," Lindsay chimed in. "She blacks out after even one drink. We just needed her to sleep through it." And there it was, the truth, spoken aloud, cold and simple, calculated. They hadn't counted on me not drinking the juice. They hadn't counted on the fact that I hadn't touched a drop of alcohol in years. Not since learning the hard way how violently my body reacted. A sip of wine, and I'd black out. They knew that. They had always known that. And they were counting on it. The betrayal cut deeper than anything they could have said to my face. Because this wasn't a moment of desperation. This wasn't one bad decision made in panic. It was a coordinated act. A plan. 3 people I had once trusted who had once loved me. I thought were working in quiet unison to rob me. Not just of money, but of safety, dignity, and the last remnants of trust. Then Lindsay's voice again. "It's asking for a code." Karen leaned in. "She changed it?" "Yeah." 2-step verification. Lindsay muttered, annoyed. "Try another app," Dawn said. More tapping. More frustration. Silence. "It's locked," Karen finally said. A beat passed. Then Dawn sighed, resigned, like a man mildly inconvenienced. Put the phone back. No one said anything else. No apologies. No nervous laughter, just a quiet shuffling. A phone returned to the table, and the sound of bodies settling back into their chairs. They sat there like nothing had happened, like they hadn't just drugged their daughter, their sister. I waited a few more minutes, let the moment breathe, gave them time to let their guard down. Then I blinked my eyes open slowly, like someone waking from a light nap. "Sorry," I murmured. I think I blacked out for a second. They all looked at me with that same strained concern, masks perfectly in place. "You okay?" Don asked, his voice carefully casual. "Yeah," I said, sitting up slowly. "I think I just need some fresh air." I picked up my phone as if nothing had happened, though we all knew something had. I smiled, not because I was okay, but because I finally understood. This was never a family dinner. It was a quiet heist. I walked out of that house the same way I'd walked in alone. They smiled as I left, saying all the right things. "Thanks for coming. Text us when you get home. Drive safe." Their voices were light, even warm, like we hadn't just crossed a boundary we could never return from. At the door, we hugged. One by one, Karen's perfume clung to my collar. Don's jacket brushed my arm. Lindsay's touch was light, but deliberate. Habit, tradition, reflex. That was all it was now. And as we embraced for the last time, I felt something settle in my chest, the weight of finality. This would be the last time I called them family. But what they didn't know was that I had come prepared. That bathroom trip I took earlier wasn't just for the call with Mark. It was for something else. Before I returned to the table, I made two very intentional moves. First, I didn't disable the fingerprint scanner on my phone. I left it active just like they expected. Let them think they were getting in. Let them believe they had 1 second. I activated an app I had built years ago during a freelance security audit. It allowed stealth audio recording in the background, no red lights, no blinking icons, no trace on the screen. Something only someone who worked in cybersecurity or development might know how to do. I didn't need to accuse them. I didn't need a confrontation. I just needed evidence. And they handed it to me, word for word. The tapping on the screen, the whispered instructions, the moment my thumb was pressed against the sensor, the full-blown discussion about my banking app, the verification failures, their casual theft like it was just another Sunday chore. They thought I was unconscious. They thought they were in control, but they never saw the real plan. The one I wrote quietly behind locked doors and unreadable eyes. When I got home, I didn't cry. I didn't scream or shatter anything. I simply saved the audio file, backed it up to 3 different encrypted drives, and pulled up my bank activity logs. There it was, multiple failed login attempts timestamped precisely during the minutes I was asleep. I paired them with the recording, matched them second by second, cross-referenced the failed two-factor authentications with the tabs I could hear in the background. It was all there. Cold, precise, irrefutable. Then I did what I was trained to do. I built a case, not out of anger, but out of necessity. I printed every failed attempt, captured every time-stamped screen, drafted a timeline of the night, broken into minute-by-minute detail. The recordings alone were damning, but the logs made it airtight. The next morning, I walked into the local police department like I was running errands, calm, focused. A man in front of me was arguing over a parking ticket. The officer at the desk looked exhausted. But when I said, "I need to report a crime," she perked up. "What kind?" she asked. "They drugged me," I said, "and tried to steal from me. I have the recording." Her pen froze midair. "Do you know who did it?" "Yes," I said. "My parents and my sister." I said it clearly, with no shake in my voice, no hesitation. That was the moment everything changed. They took me into a quiet interview room with walls the color of weak coffee and a table that wobbled slightly when I rested my hands on it. An officer, Detective Sam Hurley, according to his nameplate, sat across from me. He looked older than I expected, calm eyes, not the kind of man who interrupted or filled silences too quickly. I handed him a flash drive. There's an audio recording. I'd like you to listen to the entire thing before I say anything else. He didn't argue. Just plugged it in, pulled out a yellow legal pad, and hit play. For 17 minutes, neither of us spoke. The room filled with soft, disembodied voices, Karen's gentle whisper, Don's mumbled instructions, Lindsay's half-annoyed commands, my thumb being pressed to the phone, the bank app launching, their panic when the second layer of security kicked in, their silence when it failed. When the recording ended, Hurley exhaled slowly. Then he looked up. Do you realize what they were trying to do? Yes, I said. They wanted to clean out my account. He nodded. That's not just theft. It's biometric misuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, and if the drink was altered, possibly administering a substance without consent. That's serious. I know, I replied. That's why I'm here. He tapped a pen against the folder he'd started building. You did the right thing coming in. Most people wouldn't. I almost didn't, I admitted. But then I realized, if I didn't stop it here, it would just get worse. He asked a few more questions. How I knew they might drug me. Why I hadn't drunk the juice. Why I didn't go to the hospital. I told him the truth about Mark's message, my past experience with alcohol, my profession in cybersecurity, and how I had anticipated they might try something. He didn't question my calm. He didn't expect me to cry. He understood that people react differently when they've been prepared for betrayal. Do you have a place to stay? He asked. Yes. Do you feel safe right now? I do. I've already blocked them, changed my number, froze my credit, updated all security protocols. He smiled faintly. You work in tech, don't you? I nodded. We'll take it from here, he said, pushing back from the table. The evidence is strong, really strong. I didn't ask what would happen next. I didn't need revenge. I just needed distance and a record. I walked out of that police station not with satisfaction, but with something cleaner, clarity. 2 days later, my new phone started buzzing before I'd even poured my morning coffee. 3 messages. 1 voicemail. The first was from Karen. Did you actually report your own family? Then, what is wrong with you? I didn't reply. The voicemail was from Lindsay. Her voice trembled, hovering somewhere between rage and panic. It was just a mistake. You didn't have to make it worse. I deleted it. Then Dawn called. I let it go to voicemail. You think the cops will fix this? You're going to destroy everything. You don't do this to your own people. That was the final push. I texted once, just once. You drugged me. You tried to rob me. That's not family. That's a felony. Then I blocked all of them. Mom, Dad, Lindsay, group chats, even emergency bypass numbers. And then for the first time in my adult life, I exhaled without guilt. No. Confrontation. No screaming match. Just the sound of a door quietly closing and the locks finally turning from my side. They didn't fight the charges. Not after the audio surfaced. Not after the banking app logs matched the exact minute my thumb was pressed to the sensor. Not after Detective Hurley called it the cleanest case of coordinated biometric fraud he'd seen in 20 years. Karen, Dawn, and Lindsay all accepted plea deals, probation, community service, fines, and a court-issued no-contact order. No prison time, but a record that wouldn't disappear. Their names now lived in court files and financial fraud registries. A stain no amount of silence could scrub clean. And still, I never heard a word of apology. They simply vanished. It was strange how quickly the silence shifted from punishment to peace. I had feared it would feel heavy, final, like the closing of something sacred. Instead, it felt light, like shedding a coat I hadn't realized I'd been carrying through summer. I changed everything. My phone number, my locks, my estate documents. I froze my credit, updated my passwords, and rewrote my digital life. I turned off every backdoor they'd ever had into me. It wasn't revenge. It was protection. It was healing. Weeks passed. Then one day, a cousin on Don's side reached out. Not to take sides, just sharing news. Like people do when gossip is too big to ignore. They sold the house, she said. Legal fees. Debt. I guess they couldn't keep up. I didn't ask for more. I didn't need to. I let the details find me like headlines I didn't click. The car sold. The retirement account drained. Karen back working at a consignment shop. Don cutting lawns on weekends for extra cash. Lindsay, the former finance student. The one with a semester abroad. The one who always had a fallback was now folding paper towels in aisle 9 of a discount grocery store across town. I saw her. Once. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and pretended not to. Either way, I said nothing. She wore a blue vest and white polo, hair tied back in a messy bun. Her posture was slumped, her expression blank. She looked up at the shelf, like the answer might be hiding between paper goods and dollar store detergent. There was no one around her. No boyfriend. No entourage. Just the quiet shuffle of someone trying not to be seen. I paid for my pasta and left. No drama. No confrontation. Just distance. A mutual acquaintance later confirmed what I had already guessed. Mark had left a few weeks after everything came out. Packed up and moved across the state. No big fight. Just gone. Some things don't need explanations. They speak for themselves. As for me, life became quiet, steady, beautiful in its simplicity. I worked. I slept. I read books I actually finished. I opened my fridge and knew every single item inside was mine, bought by me, for me. There were no more surprise Venmo requests, no guilt-laced phone calls. My phone stayed still. My boundaries held firm. I thought cutting ties would break something in me. Instead, it made space for something else. Self-respect. Peace. Freedom. I used to believe that family was untouchable, that no matter how strained things got, how unfair the dynamics became, blood was a bond that couldn't be questioned. But now I know better. Because sometimes the people who share your last name will also be the ones who cross lines no stranger ever would. Sometimes where family is used not to protect you, but to silence you, to guilt you, to keep you in place. That night, sitting at their dinner table, I realized the most dangerous betrayal doesn't come with screaming or slammed doors. It comes with cranberry juice, gentle voices, and hands that move quietly across the surface of a phone. I didn't fight them with anger. I fought them with clarity. I didn't raise my voice. I raised my standards. Family should never be a license to harm. Love is not real if it depends on your silence, your sacrifice, or your bank account. You have the right to walk away from anyone, yes, even family who uses your love as leverage. Have you ever had to draw the line with someone you love? Share your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. Your story might help someone who's struggling to say no right now. And if this message resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this channel is about reclaiming your peace, your power, and your voice. You're not alone. We're building something stronger here, not just family by blood, but family by truth.